Welcome to Free Play. Today we're looking at Giga Wing. Capcom got a whole lot of mileage out of their CPS-2 board, which they first implemented in 1993 with Super Street Fighter II. Though technically surpassed by the Capcom PlayStation 3 in 1996, the board saw usage all the way up until 2003. Suffice to say, Capcom knew the score when they put out Giga Wing in 1999. What they were going to do was dip into this new concept of a bullet hell game. The game itself takes place in the distant future, blah blah blah, fight the bad guys, ancient evil, yeah, you get it. Shoot-'em-ups don't require a story. They require skilled craftsmanship and a good eye for challenge. If you can't do that, then you're just going to make something transparently there to eat your quarters. And by the time you reach the end of the last stage in Giga Wing, you'll be damage boosting through areas just to clear the screen. What Giga Wing has is a sort of bullet hell light idea, in which the player's sprite can still see what's going on, but there's a lot of fire to dodge. The player's ships, of which there are 4, are all equipped with a reflector shield of some kind that lets you soak up enemy damage and reflect it, which will net you some pretty substantial points. However, the shield is limited in charge and requires a long wind-up, so by the time you realize you need it, you'll probably already be dead. And while it helps against bosses and regular enemies alike, it's not really enough to keep you alive reliably. When you get yourself off just so you can get a bomb refill, as I found myself often doing, something is a little sideways with the game design. Ideally, when you're playing a game of this sort, you want to feel like your bullets have some kind of impact. But for some reason the scaling is a little bit weird here. Even the full-powered gun doesn't feel like it's doing all that much against the bosses, and there seems to be a real lack of feedback as to how well you're doing. It's sad really, because there's a good game buried under here somewhere, you just have to dig through some garbage to find it. I felt really disappointed with the way Giga Wing was designed. Because on one side, it was making good use of the CPS-2 abilities to display massive sprites with a sharp quality and next to no slowdown. But at the same point, I actually wanted to see those sprites, which is difficult when your screen is so grossly overcrowded by bullets, and that includes your own. There's just no real good way to actually look at what's going on the screen from a gameplay or a design perspective. It feels a whole lot like Giga Wing was finished with its development cycle and ready for release, but then they determined that it'd be easier to put a layer of bad design over it to make it fit in with the new stuff going on in the shmup scene at the time. The game is also notable for having 4 different storylines in it, and combining them when different characters are in play. But the requirements for the good ending are pretty steep. And again, nobody is playing shoot-'em-ups for their storylines. They're playing it because the gameplay is at a certain level. And unfortunately, while that level is present in Giga Wing, the layers that they put on top of it, that being the bullet hell ideas, actually drag it down. It was also released on the Dreamcast in the same year of its release in Japan, and in July of 2000 in the States. It was a fairly perfect port for the time, and take that how you will. The game has all the best design elements from previous games, but just can't seem to wedge that bullet hell element in properly. Luckily for Capcom, they learned their mistakes when they put out Mars Matrix 2 years later. So when all is said and done, does it get the free play quarter of approval or the slug of shame? Well, the problem with this one is that it has all the parts of a good game here, I just can't recommend it for the ham-handed implementation of elements of other shooters that were gaining popularity. Shoot-'em-ups only require so much to be really good and really fun, and when you lose that balance, the facade falls apart. When the quarter munching is so grossly obvious, it really ruins the experience, so I gotta give this one the slug of shame. Can't win 'em all, Capcom. Join us next time when we look at Hammerin' Harry.